How can you turn a critic into your biggest cheerleader? Let's find out today on the Art and Science of Difficult Conversations. Welcome to the Art and Science of Difficult Conversations, where we believe if we communicate better, we can live better. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris, of Leadership Potential, where I work with leaders trying to navigate difficult transitions, rebuild trust, and fix broken cultures by leaning into these hard conversations. And as always, I'm joined by Lucie, owner of Mind Fittery.
Yes, Mind Fittery mental fitness gym for leaders, their teams, and families, where we are learning how to rewire our brains to really support our well-being, performance, and relationships.
Lucie, I'm excited for today's episode. I'm excited about every episode I've noticed. Maybe I'll think of a new way of saying that. Yeah, I'm always excited. But I'm excited about our guest today and the topic because this is a guy I actually went to grad school with his wife, and I've now known him twice the number of years as my daughter's age. So I've known him for like 15, 16 years now at this point. Mm-hmm. And so Matt Brown joins us. He leads OARS, a nonprofit on a mission to keep the Sudbury, Assabet, and Concord Rivers flowing clean and wild, protecting both the people and the wildlife that live there. And this is in Massachusetts. Matt, welcome to our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. And it was great meeting you back when we were, 15?
Yes, way back in the day. But you also have a career being in the nonprofit space. This is not just the first time. You've been in the nonprofit space before. What's made you so passionate kind of your entire time to stay in the nonprofit space and doing this kind of work?
You know, it started in college with volunteering. So I didn't know I was going to end up in a career in nonprofits, but I got very involved with volunteering, both as an undergrad and then really as a grad student in Worcester. I got super involved with Worcester Earn a Bike, became, a volunteer, shop manager, eventually got on the board. Whole time I was going to school for my master's in English, thinking I was going to be a professor. But after a year in the job market, I just kind of gravitated back towards working in nonprofits. Did a stint on a sailboat working as an environmental educator. And then that led to working in human services. And it just clicked. It really resonated with me. I was good at it. So then I went back to school and got my master's in nonprofit management from Worcester State and have been doing it ever since. So I mean, my dad's a teacher. My mom was a grant writer for nonprofits. So it wasn't that, outside the realm of possibility for me to end up in this field.
Yeah. And Lucie, way back when Matt was working at this Jewish Child and Family Services, a nonprofit, he had me join the Human Rights Committee. Ooh. And I learned so much now about how things were not supposed to go in those types of committees.
That's a tough one.
And there was plenty of difficult conversations, but I always think of it as like, that's a good experience of this is what not to do and how to say things or how not to say things or have decorum even in a meeting.
To be fair, I was tasked with straightening that whole process out. There was a very large overrepresentation of parents on the Human Rights Committee who didn't really understand their mandate for being there. And Chris was one of the first professional voices I was able to bring in to help really kind of set the tone and bring actual human rights back into the conversation and not necessarily people's opinions of what their adult children with disabilities should or shouldn't be doing. So that was quite the knot to untie.
Yeah. Wow. It was a good learning experience for sure.
Yeah, for both of us.
Well, it sounds like a lot of knots and lots of difficult conversations. Dealing with difficult conversations and all these knots and the opinions of different people and maybe strong opinions. Was it something that came naturally to you to have these difficult conversations and untangle those relationship knots and conversation knots?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think it was. I think that's part of what this field, like part of why it clicked, because I just from growing up, the situations I've been in my personal life, I was kind of a problem solver or a mediator at an early age. And that's part of what made it feel pretty natural, just getting thrown into conflict and being kind of comfortable in conflict. But, that's not to say that I've learned a lot about how to do it well and how not to get into power struggles with people. But some people are very turned off by that, and just the thought of conflict is overwhelming. And it was not that it's easy, but it's not something that I'm terribly uncomfortable with.
Well, that's half the battle, is just being comfortable with the not working out well, or these heavy emotions. What was something you did have to learn about these kind of conversations?
I think just practicing ahead of time, and really, if I tend to talk and go on a bit, if I don't really have my points lined up, and if I'm going to have a very challenging conversation with somebody, particularly a person I supervise, that they're in kind of fight or flight mode, and the less you say and the more direct you can be, the better. And if you meander and talk around the topic a lot, it's counterproductive. So, if I was giving somebody a final warning or having to let somebody go, I'd practice it, which it sounds weird, but I'd be in the car on the way to the office, just kind of going through my touch points. And, that way when you show up, you can kind of go into autopilot and say what you need to say and not get hung up in the emotions of that situation.
Was that easy? Like, did somebody tell you that to practice it, or did you just come that on your own?
No, so at JF&CS, going way back, that was the first time I was in a position where I had to fire people. Prior to that, it was something we, delegate to HR somewhere, or, you'd go through the disciplinary action process and someone else would take over. But they had a good thing there. I think if you were a manager or a director and you had to let somebody go, HR really puts you in the position to have to do it. And I think that kept people from abusing that. You had to address the problems and really be the person to tell the person they no longer had a job. And that added a lot of weight to it. So the first time I had to let somebody go, I did kind of talk too much, and the person, it was this like horrible moment where they're getting fired. This is one of the worst things that can happen to a person, and their boss is just like yapping on and on and on about why they're leaving, and it just being very confusing. I thought that didn't go well. The end result was the same. They still unfortunately didn't have a job, but I thought, it's a serious situation. I need to bring my best self to that, and really for their benefit, and for, just to give the situation the dignity it deserves, and not to pull the Band-Aid off very slowly. So I took it onto myself too. I did get a little feedback from the HR director just to talk less. So I took it to heart and really just made sure I did a better job.
Pretty cool. I hear a strength there of being able to take the feedback and pivot and learn and practice. And even when it's uncomfortable, just do it. Sounds like.
Was it different? One of the reasons we're having you on here is because you've had experience of a board member also that's been critical of you and more kind of more resistant to you. What are the differences you found between having an employee that's resistant to you or skeptical of your work versus a board member, someone above you?
They're very similar. It's more of how much authority they have. I thought about two examples of where people resisted my changes in leadership I was making. And I thought of the board member situation that we talked about, but I also thought way back when the first job I had where I was supervising other people, I was running a residential program in Worcester, and I had just gotten promoted into that position. I was only working in the field for a year, and all of a sudden I had 9 staff, including a number of staff who had been there for years, including one who had been there for almost 20 years. And I had a lot of ideas about how a program like that should run. And when I got there, I found this one staff who wasn't the most gifted intellectually, definitely struggled to learn what she knew, but she had learned a lot in the 20 years that she was there, and really valued what she did and valued her job, and had kind of taken over. So instead of kind of letting her peers learn from her, like acting as kind of a lead team member, she just kind of hoarded responsibility because she felt that, part of her felt like she was the best at it, but part of her, I think that was her value as a person. And when I got there, I recognized that I have 4 people that have the same position, and only one of them is doing case management. Only one of them is doing medication administration properly. Only one of them is filling out these behavioral charts. And I thought, like, we need to train everybody to do this. This can't be one person's job. And the staff, some of them were happy with letting her do really their work, but other people were really hungry to do the work that they signed up to do and were frustrated by it. So, initially I thought, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have her help me and train people up and get everyone, functioning at the level they're supposed to function at. But she was very resistant to that. And at first I was a little bit naive, and I thought, she's resistant because she feels like she is doing it the best. And if you let go of that, the work is going to suffer, and the outcomes are going to suffer. We really care about the clients that live there and helping them, meet their goals and get to where they need to be. But the longer I spent there, I realized it's more about her concern about losing what she values in herself and what she gets from that job. It's this like empowerment, this sense of self, this is who she is and she's good at it. And if other people start doing it, it's going to diminish that. And that was tough. But once I figured that was the motivator, I was able to help her kind of reconceptualize her role on the team and still hold some kind of value, even though the other people were learning their jobs and were, picking up the slack that she had taken up. And some of them were doing it better than her. But I was able to show her that by raising other people up, it doesn't diminish you. It builds a richer and better team. And I believe she still works there. She had been working there for 20 years. It's probably been 16, 17 years since I left. And, I think that was a success. Very similarly, when I started here, I had a board member who was very concerned about let me back up a little bit. I work for an organization that has a very strong and very well-established science basis. Like our water quality monitoring program has been going on for 30 years. It's really, it's one of the best in the state. And it's through that and through our policy work where we've really had the biggest impact on our mission. And when they brought me in, it's really to help grow the organization. And some of the areas that we can grow are outside of science. Obviously we want to grow science, we want to grow our restoration work, but we have a lot of opportunity to grow recreation, education, community engagement, all these things that are a little softer and squishier than hard science. And this board member was very concerned that I was going to diminish our science activity through the pursuit of activities that are not directly science. And the way I saw it was, we're bringing more people in, we're bringing more interest, we're opening up additional potential funding opportunities to elevate the entire organization, which then lets us do even more science work and more focused, not only more, but kind of better. And having learned that previous lesson about, it's not really this person's concern about the work suffering, it's about their value that they have tied into it. Because this board member has been one of our water quality volunteers for like 30 years. This is a huge part of her life. She's put a lot of time, effort, and energy into it. And I think that like personal value and personal role was tied up in this. And I think reassuring her that, just because we grow in one area doesn't mean we have to decrease in another. It's not a zero-sum game. If we're growing the organization, we're growing all of it. And everything that we're doing is tied to our mission, including the recreation, education, and community engagement work. And I think just by being present, by listening, by being available to talk through these situations, she's really come around and trusts that I'm not here to make us just some fun, soft organization that does paddling trips but doesn't do anything policy or science related.
Yeah. That's such a key point that you for both, like the key was understanding the other person's kind of motivations, priorities, values, and things like that. What was your approach to learning those things about each of them?
Well, trial and error, I guess. I think
fair enough.
I think you learn those hard lessons once, and after that, if you're good, you can apply them later. So it took me a while with that first example. I was really banging my head against the wall, talking to my supervisor, frustrated that, why won't this person let me or why is she fighting me training her peers to do the jobs that they signed up to do? Like, why? I don't get it. You know, clearly these people want to do the jobs they signed up to do. They want to do case management. They want to do X, Y, and Z. And this person's just fighting me every inch, every step I take. And, you know, it was through that relationship with my supervisor and kind of like her saying, there's more to it than just that. You know, this is, she's been doing this job forever. She started as like the janitor and worked her way up to case manager. And every step of that way was hard fought, was a challenge. And now you're hiring somebody who's, unfortunately for her, probably a little bit smarter, has just more kind of natural talents and gifts to be able to do this job, and is going to learn it quicker than she did. And that's very frightening for her. So, you know, having a mentor and you know, having a solid supervisor to help kind of walk a new manager through that is super helpful. And now, as someone who's, I mean, not super seasoned, I guess, like relatively seasoned, I'm able to identify that because I've been through it before.
It takes a level of emotional intelligence to be able to identify what motivates the other person, how they're feeling about it. And I wonder what helps you stay inside calm when they're fighting you, so you don't get defensive or you don't fight back, which might not be the best way.
Yeah. So I had one really bad day as a substitute teacher between college and grad school that I think I learned more about power struggles than I've ever learned before. And I got into an argument with a middle school student about something stupid. I forget what it was. I have no idea, but it was this power struggle where this person just, no matter what I said, was gonna resist me, and I got pulled into it, the hook, line, and sinker, and was just so drained at the end of it. It was like an entire period. It was like study hall. This is going way back, but I was exhausted. My dad's a teacher, and it was a middle school teacher, and I told him what happened. He goes, "You just got pulled into a power struggle. You just like don't you have to separate yourself from that situation and understand that, you know, you're an adult, and at the end of the day you're going to go home, and this person's going to go home there, and that's the end of it. And really just have kind of like a professional wall between you and that person. And I don't know if it's the most healthy thing to do from a, you know, psychology standpoint, but that's actually worked really well for me professionally. That, you know, this is I'm Matt at work. This is who I am here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to hang up these headphones and close my computer and go home and be, you know, kind of the real Matt. You know, the dad, the husband, the guy who, you know, likes to restore mountain bikes in the basement. And I can kind of use that professional front and not have my own self tied up and kind of exposed through it, if that makes sense. So, you know, I'm not disassociating or anything, but I really think that this is it's a healthy mental separation between, you know, who I am in these difficult conversations and who I am as a person.
Do you keep that separation all day, even if you're not expecting a hard conversation? Or is it when you're really expecting a more conflictual or difficult relationship?
I think all day when I'm on the clock. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely a layer between who I am at work and who I am as a person.
What would you say is the key difference between these two states of you?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think I could probably work on this at home is that, you know, when someone says something or does something that is hurtful or that is threatening, I don't respond to it emotionally right away. I'm able to kind of unpack it and think about it and analyze it a little bit. It's just kind of a buffer to process that. And, you know, when I'm with my friends, my family, they know me better. I think there's that, but, you know, I think those things tend to not have to pass through that buffer. So I think at work, I have a little bit more time to really kind of suss things out process, think about it, think about where it's coming from. And it doesn't bother me on a personal level.
Have you ever been in a work situation where maybe you just were working so hard for such an extended amount of time that you weren't able to have the energy to keep up that separation?
No, no, it's not super hard to do.
Yeah.
Earlier in my career, I think the closest to that I came would be, I had again, going way back, this is when I was managing a residential program, and it was my first job as a manager. And I had a supervisor that at the time I thought was a little bit unfair and really demanding. And no matter what I did, I felt like I wasn't doing good enough. In hindsight, I learned more from her than I learned from most of the supervisors I had after her. I think having that high standard was helpful. And I don't necessarily manage people the same way she did, but holding people to a high standard is not a bad thing. But I would go home and feel bad. I can't believe it. I did this and that, and I'm still getting guff from this person. And it seems like no matter what I do, I can't do good enough. That was frustrating. But again, I think it really elevated me. And I think she was hard on me because she saw some potential. I don't think if she thought it was going to make me, cry and quit and never come back, I don't think she would have done it. So she was a demanding but competent supervisor. And I had to grow thicker skin to be able to handle that, which was helpful. It helped me later when I had people that maybe didn't care. The one thing about that role was that she cared a lot about the people we served. She really, in her heart, wanted the best for all the people living in the programs that she was responsible for. And that quality showed through. And growing a thicker skin to be able to work with her helped me later when I had supervisors that maybe didn't, or I had to be the one, the taskmaster, to really push and get the most out of people because the people above me weren't as invested.
When somebody is not able, they don't have the thicker skin yet, and they're not able to leave that work at work, and they bring it, let's say, at home, and feel stressed out and replay the conversations what happened. What would you say, based on your experience, what helps you kind of transition or grow that thicker skin? What are the thoughts or maybe some rituals that you have, if any?
Having a bit of a commute helps, having some time to separate yourself from work. I think working from home can get a little tough because, you're instantly transported from your work to your outside of work life without any kind of buffer. But again, going back to former supervisors, I remember just scrambling to get stuff done, staying late, and missing out on some family moments, and having a supervisor say, the work's always going to be there, but being a dad with a young kid isn't, and also, the roles you have outside of work are who you are as a person, who you're going to be in forever until you die. Whereas the job you have right now is probably only going to be for a few years. So I think just having some grounding in what really is important in your life helps you keep those situations at bay. I mean, obviously there's going to be crunch times. There's going to be, busy days you do have to cut into your personal time, days that, work can kind of dominate. But in the grand scheme, just being able to understand that this is a job that I'm going to do really well. I'm going to give it my all, but I'm going to be Matt the dad, Matt the husband, Matt the son forever. Matt the executive director at OARS, probably not as long as any of those things.
Powerful, being really clear on what's important to you in your life and creating those boundaries to protect that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes those boundaries are tougher to hold, especially if you're. So I'm in a really lucky and great position here where I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, but we're a Watershed organization, so nobody lives in any of our programs, and I'm not getting calls at 2:00 in the morning because the sprinkler's going off, or the overnight left and the clients were unattended. I mean, there's a lot. I've been in a lot more challenging roles where it's very hard to hold those boundaries because work is 24/7 and it's kind of chaotic by nature. So this is a lot easier than a human services job or an education job where you're dealing with just a whole different level of challenge. And I've done both, and I definitely feel like my ability to maintain a good work-life balance is much easier here.
Mm.
But at the same rate, the work we do requires kind of a higher degree of polish. I mean, everyone on staff here is a scientist. I'm not the most educated person by a long shot. I have a PhD right across the hall from me, and it's a very smart office, very talented, and it does require a different set of skills that are definitely challenging.
Makes sense.
One of my favorite memes that I've ever seen is a video of a guy saying, in like 50 years, nobody's going to care how many meetings you went to, how many emails you sent, whether you followed up on this report. What they'll care about is how much you can bench, how much you deadlifted, were you able to. It's the funniest thing I've seen. But
it's a weightlifting meme.
Yeah, it's a weightlifting meme.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And this is a video of a guy like lifting weights in nature. So